suppose, though, if that's what some people want, maybe it's better if I don't judge.
Yeah. Yes, I get it, boss. Are you hearing this? He won't shut up about this. No, boss. I don't think it's a good idea to kill people with rocks.
You are fired!
You come here to forget too? Never mind. It looks like you're already there. Yeah, I'm here to forget. I just want a new beginning again, away from my past memories. My negative memories outweigh the positive. Painful.
I heard the city's been getting crowded. It's because of those damn memories people. Taking our damn jobs. Oh. Sorry. I bet you're one of the good ones.
The weather's a bit poor, isn't it? It's been raining for the past, 4 hours. Not only that, it's the 5th day in the week it's rained. Unbelievable. I thought my optimism would pay off by not bringing an umbrella.
Have you seen the news recently? Well, I couldn't care less about the news. I'm doing the crossword. The Sudoku, too.
You think you got family? I think it'd be pretty backstabby if you did. Imagining someone I love and not know who I am. It'd break my heart. Who am I to dictate your decisions, though?
This place sucks. The city, I mean, not this tower. Why? I mean, it's an economic travesty. It was better when it was smaller. Things were more humble back then. And massive corporations didn't rule the skyline. You'd agree with me if you remember what it was like.
Do you ever think about a world where you don't exist? It's scary to think about how, considering how small your sphere of influence is, would anything really change? The world keeps turning with or without us. Our ultimate relevance is a terrifying thought.
How may I help you? To attempt to regain the past, huh? Have you thought anything at all about whether you truly want to remember? I thought not. Sometimes people regret this decision, you know. To some, a life of insignificance and blissful ignorance is 1,000 times simpler than floor 1B. Room 1B014. I'll write your name up for the doctor.
Who's there? If it's that smoking nurse, you can come in anytime.
Sorry for the late. Let's get started. It seems to have been around 9.5 years since you've last seen me. Almost a decade. And at that point, you came in here to forget. Now you're back here to remember. Anyway, on with the process. You shall take this medication and you'll be asleep for about a day at the very least. At that point, you'll have to take a journey through your mind and recover every memory you've seen. Within every memory, you will have to find a fragment symbolic of that event. Let me remind you of the repercussions. If you find yourself unable to gather all of your memories, you will be stuck in your own mind until you do so. So, unless you want to be stuck wallowing in the past, I suggest you gather them as fast as possible. This is your last chance to opt out of this procedure. Alright. Lie back down on the bed and we'll begin.
Don't ask about the questionable infrastructure, though. It's probably an act of your subconscious, attempting to create, well, some sorts of obstacles for you to complete, to regain the memory of my library. Weird, isn't it? That's what you get for wiping it all, I guess.
All the books here, this Chinese mumbo jumbo.
Man, I love reading. It really gets the wires of my brain untangled. Isn't literature a fantastic look into the human mind?
The librarian downstairs told me not to use the computers to play games. I'll tell you what I'm doing if you promise to keep it on the down low, okay? Okay. I'm playing Bloons Tower Defense 6 right now.
research for a project. Did you know that as a person loses their memories, they seem to forget their sense of color as well? I don't know whether that means they physically can't see color, or if they see it but just can't comprehend it. Regardless, it's scary stuff, isn't it?
Whatever you're selling, I ain't buying.
To me at once, please.
I'm starting to get real sick of all this socio-political discourse. Far more inclined to just make my own commodities, you know? And thus, it's the natural man, partner.
I think this city is far better than the other city. We've got cheaper gas, housing, and taxes. That's what you call an economy.
Don't move to the city on a whim. I'm warning you. Buy a house when you still can.
I'm thinking about moving to the city sometime soon. As much as I like it here in the suburbs, I just feel like there's less opportunity. I want to hit it big. Doing what specifically? Who knows? I just think it'd be better to leave this bubble.
Our city is way better than their city. We've got cheaper education, healthcare, and energy. Beat that, other city.
I wish you could have gotten better. I wish you could have gotten better. And I wish you could have pursued all those dreams you spent so much time talking with me about. And I'm sorry for being more than I was. I know you don't know what I'm talking about, and I'm sorry. It's just in the way. But we both know that can't happen. But we both know that can't happen. I don't want to keep you here. I know you don't miss it. We'll see each other again. I'm sure. Did you know that we love one another? More than anything. You haven't forgotten me again, have you? Okay, good. The city was always so vibrant and comforting. It really did feel like we knew everyone. And I was always so glad we got you out of that apartment. It's nothing. I just want to be
When was this building installed? It seems a little imposing in the middle of the residence district. That's the commercialization of modern city CU, I guess.
What a weird building. It has no other purpose besides being a random parkour course. I swear, the infrastructure just gets worse and worse.
Roblox fails!
I didn't expect anyone else to be up here. The stars would be so beautiful tonight. However, we're in the middle of a city, meaning heavy light pollution, and you don't even remember what the stars here look like anyway. Maybe when you're out, take some more time to appreciate them, won't you?
is fantastic. But the commune, not so much. All that platforming you just did? Imagine doing that after your 9 to 5. But hey, that's like half my bi-weekly paycheck.
we're fully booked right now, so it'll be a 9.5-year long wait. Sorry, I don't make the rules. You'll probably find what you need here, though. Good luck.
Hi! Can I get some of that unspecified liquid? Yeah, me too! That's my favorite thing to drink, besides water, of course. Yep, water is also my favorite. There exists nothing in this world more constant than the importance of water to all carbon-based life forms.
My head. It's probably all this unspecified liquid I'm drinking. Definitely don't do this without a supervising adult or friend. Really don't make this habit either.
Excuse me, can you take our order? Oh, you don't work here? Okay, it doesn't matter. Just tell the first server you see. We want the focaccia bread, the calamari, and the carpaccio just as our appetizer. Thanks. Oh, and here's your tip for that.
yourself before, and you will blame yourself again. The situation will not have your pure eternal joy. You will forever be haunted.
Psst. Between you and me, our dish was $75. Has fine dining always been like this? I don't want to get political, but seriously, this inflation is running rampant.
that's why you blame yourself for it. I wish I was there to tell you that everything would be okay. And I hope you know that even in my final moments, even while I was angry at you, you remembered me. I know I'm not the real you. But I need you to finally accept that you were never at fault. It was never your fault. I don't care how angry I could have been at you. I would have never wanted you to be I miss you. I'm sorry. There'll be bigger things, and maybe, just maybe, you'll find someone who fills your heart just as much, if not more than I do. Well, of course I'd be jealous. What would I do? Prevent you from living a normal life? It's all a part of my life. It's Grandma. You're making this goodbye part one for me. And I'm a figment of your memory. You've been in your own head for a long time. It's time to wake up to reality.
You did this to yourself. No reduce for a while. Live like this for a bit. Trust me, you'll grow to appreciate
You'll be fine. You're awake now, at least. These colors. Agonizing me. Estoy comprendiendo que todo right, buddy. This is reality.
any comments, questions, or concerns. Nothing? Okay, good. Well, let me remind you of the repercussions.
Better now than before, huh? Everything was so gloomy before I had all my memories returned. It's a hard life to live, but a life without hardships isn't a life at all.
Yeah, you're talking about the burnt down house in the old suburb, right? I don't know why they haven't renovated that old pile of rubble yet. It's been a decade. A
famous painter on that house? Really? Huh. What a sad story. I hope her family's alright.
I've heard they're actually working to make the streets drivable. Civil engineering is a highly underappreciated discipline. I think some people are too quick to hate instead of understanding that a lot of them are doing their best. If you want to be better, then do your part. It's that easy. Too bad nobody thinks to actually contribute.
I think seeing the world optimistically helped me understand that everyone is a unique character. Everyone does things in their own way, and I just now started to appreciate that. It's hard to understand the beauty of everything when you're too focused on the partial. There will always be the crude parts of life. Why don't you work to alleviate that instead of complaining?
Oh, you're up. It's been 2 weeks. That's a new record. The doctor's working on some other patients, but just take a seat. I'll tell him that you're awake.
Hey, you're back. You were in there for a hot minute. A lot's changed since you were out. The only constant in the universe is change, after all.
The traffic getting here was absolutely horrid. It was so upsetting that I'm thinking of just waltzing out there and erasing my memory of just that event. Is that possible?
It's straining, isn't it? Having every memory rush back to you at once? I mean, everything! Down to all the minute little details about your life? It's overwhelming, but in a good way.
So, what did you even have to remember? Oh, scratch that. That's a very, very loaded question. Wow, look at me go, just asking about your most traumatic event. My bad!
You know, now that I think about it, maybe someone should look into this company. Like, it seems beneficial, don't get me wrong, but it also seems kind of predatory. Don't get me started on that, doctor. I know it's a free procedure, and we had to sign contracts, but aren't there any ethical concerns?
The weather's a lot sunnier now than it was a couple weeks ago. I swear, looks like we had rain every day. I like the rain, but realistically, balance is important. Can't have one without the other.
My memories are hard to live with. Maybe taking a little while without them will make me appreciate them more.
Okay, get this. I'm trying to read this book, and it has this overarching tragic story. But it's kind of full of subtle references to downplay city infrastructure. Is that not, like, at least a little weird? I mean, I agree, but I think the greatest message to get out there is to emphasize the importance of elections. I mean, people care a little too much about the big elections, even though the more local ones affect them more. Is this a little too on the nose?
You're looking a lot better now than before. I see the lights are turned.